Sweet Pet+Reading+Entertainment Circle+Mind reading, Shen Wanwan accidentally got into a domineering CEO's novel and became the male lead's contracted wife. As a small financial fanatic who loves money as much as her life, Shen Wanwan agreed for the sake of money. She thought that as long as she followed the agreement and became Mrs. G for a year, she could divorce with money and live a carefree life. Unexpectedly, he obtained the golden finger mind reading technique and discovered that the domineering CEO actually harbored a little chatterbox in his heart. If this woman is coquettish towards me and asks me to stay for dinner, I can't help but reluctantly agree. Oh, this outfit looks really nice. I really like it. No, I can't show it on my face, I can't make this woman too proud. Ji Jingxian thought he was just looking for a wife to agree with. As soon as the agreement was reached, the two of them could easily split up. But I didn't expect to be gradually attracted by the every move of this little woman, unconsciously sinking my heart. In the evening, I have bought an extra piece of clothing here, so I'll give it to you. Ji Jingxian pretended to be aloof and handed over the couple's outfit, but in fact, she was extremely nervous inside. Evening, I have a banquet to attend tonight. What I mean is, if it's not convenient for you, you don't need to accompany me. Late at night, I heard from my assistant that there is a popular variety show recently, which seems to be a show that couples attend together. Ji Jingxian appeared as stable as an old dog on the surface, but inside he shouted countless times, he wants to go. P.S. It seems that Gao Leng has a talkative boss in his heart instead of listening to roast from him every day, trying not to make himself laugh. Novel keyword. Sweet temptation. Naixiang's delicate wife set fire to Ji Shaoxin without any pop-ups, sweet temptation. Milk fragrant wife set fire to Ji Shaoxin. Download the complete set of TXT, Sweet Temptation. Milk fragrant wife setting fire on Ji Shaoxin latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. Wearing the agreement wife of the male lead in the Zongwen. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Chapter 1. Wearing the agreement wife of the male lead in the Zongwen, Shen Wanwan, sign the agreement and get divorced 1 year later. I will give you 50 million yuan as compensation. In the scorching summer of July, the scorching sun hangs high in the sky, mercilessly roasting the earth. At this time, the Ji family village garden is particularly lively. Today is the wedding ceremony between Ji Jingxian, the ruler of the Ji family, and Shen Wanwan, the youngest daughter of the Shen family. The person who received the invitation arrived early, holding glasses and gathering in groups of 3 or 2, talking. The second floor of the Ji mansion was bustling with people, filled with laughter and joy, but the atmosphere in the master bedroom fell to freezing point. If you don't agree, I don't mind using some means. Ji Jingxian stood by the window wearing a silver-gray suit with his hands covering his hands, while behind him stood a girl in a white dress. Okay, as you wish. Upon hearing the threatening words, Shen Wanwan agreed without hesitation. Today is the 3rd day that Shen Wanwan has traveled through this book. In the book, she is a cannon fodder who has not lived through the first 10 chapters, and also the agreement wife of the male lead Ji Jingxian. Ji Jingxian doesn't like her and would agree to get married for family reasons, but she doesn't know her true identity. The original owner was deeply infatuated with Ji Jingxian, and being able to marry her made the original owner happy for a long time. And the tragedy also happened from then on. According to the development in the book, the male lead Ji Jingxian will leave an agreement for her before the wedding ceremony begins. Shen Wanwan, who could see the agreement, was furious and caused a scene at the wedding ceremony, causing embarrassment for the Ji and Shen families. Later, the female protagonist appeared, and the original protagonist, out of jealousy, crazily targeted her and did all sorts of bad things. In the end, he died in a fire he had created himself, leaving no ashes behind. Thinking of the outcome in the book, Shen Wanwan trembled all over and immediately decided to cooperate well. After a year, she took the money and quickly got out of the house. Just as Shen Wanwan was lost in thought, Ji Jingxian coldly glanced at her and quickly signed the agreement. Then hurry up and sign it. Okay. Shen Wanwan didn't hesitate to pick up her pen and quickly signed her name. She didn't even look at the content of the agreement, she only wanted 50 million yuan, and didn't care about anything else. With money, what can't be done? The agreement was signed, but Ji Jingxian didn't even look at Shen Wanwan. He left a message saying, "Remember your responsibilities," and quickly left the lounge. As she watched the other person leave, Shen Wanwan silently rolled her big eyes. If it weren't for the money, she would have spoiled his bad temper. However, thinking of 50 million yuan, Shen Wanwan became happy again. No wonder people say that wealthy people are generous, and this is at the level of millions. Shen Wanwan wished she could tightly hold on to Ji Jingxian's thigh. As long as she holds on to her golden thighs, a year later, she will become a wealthy woman who can take care of fresh meat. Just as Shen Wanwan was fantasizing about small fresh meat surrounding her, there was a knock on the door outside the lounge, followed by the voice of the waiter. "Miss Shen, are you ready? The wedding banquet is about to begin." "All right." Shen Wanwan briefly organized herself, opened the door to the lounge, and walked out. She quickly found Ji Jingxian and cooperated with him to greet the guests. The banquet hall was bustling both inside and outside, and upon seeing the protagonist, guests came forward to celebrate. Throughout the entire wedding ceremony, Shen Wanwan wore a smile on her face and there were no mistakes made. Until seeing off the guests, Shen Wanwan finally breathed a sigh of relief. She rubbed the stiff corners of her mouth, kicked off her high heels, and sat slumped on the sofa in the lounge. Oh, finally the person has been sent away. Before Shen Wanwan could take a break, Ji Jingxian strode over and looked down at Shen Wanwan, expressionless. "Get up, go home." Without hesitation, Shen Wanwan walked away, leaving her with a desolate figure. Shen Wanwan. Damn the domineering CEO, he's really annoying, he doesn't have any gentlemanly demeanor. Shen Wanwan ran behind Ji Jingxian while cursing at him in her heart. With this bad temper, if it's not money, who can take care of it? The car stopped at the entrance of the villa, and Shen Wanwan had just got off the car. Before she could react, the car in front of her drove away. Looking at the distant car, but Shen Wanwan was so angry that she stomped her feet in place. Not long after, the butler in the villa walked out. "Madam, please come with me." The other party smiled kindly and led Shen Wanwan into the villa. The overall decoration of the villa was minimalist, and Shen Wanwan casually glanced at it before following the butler upstairs. Time passed by in a blink of an eye, and it was already 7 p.m. During this time, Ji Jingxian did not come back. Shen Wanwan has little interest in Ji Jingxian's whereabouts. She lazily lies in bed, brushing and holding a tablet to watch handsome guys. Isn't a little wolf dog with thin waist and 8 abdominal muscles fragrant? Why worry about that big pig hoof from Ji Pippi? "Madam, dinner is ready. May I ask if you are dining now?" The sound of the butler outside the door interrupted Shen Wanwan's desire to look down. She put down her tablet and went downstairs to eat. Shen Wanwan had just arrived downstairs, and the table was filled with dishes, but there was only one set of tableware on the table, which made Shen Wanwan somewhat puzzled. "Butler, where's Ji Jingxian?" "The young master is still in the company." "Young lady, please eat first. The kitchen has reserved dishes for the young master." After hearing the reply, Shen Wanwan just nodded and ate half full before going upstairs. When the piled-up files were resolved, the sky was already pitch black. Ji Jingxian rubbed her temples wearily and stood up, leaving the office. On the first day of his marriage, in order not to arouse suspicion, he had to go home to avoid his mother's detection. As soon as Ji Jingxian stepped out of the elevator, he was hit by a woman and his restlessness worsened. He didn't even think about pushing away the woman, quickly took off his suit and held it in his hand, coldly glancing at the woman as she walked away quickly. The woman who was pushed down stared at his departing figure, her eyes filled with anger and unwillingness. Why is this different from what she thinks? The woman stood up unwillingly and headed towards the direction where Ji Jingxian had left, but the only way to greet her was the faraway car. But if Shen Wanwan were here, she would marvel at the power of the plot, the strange encounter between the male and female leads. After Ji Jingxian arrived home, she casually took a few bites of food and then returned to her room. The bedroom was pitch black, and Ji Jingxian habitually walked into the bathroom in the dark. When he came out again, he changed into a bathrobe. Ji Jingxian walked to the bed and lifted the blanket. Just as she was about to lie down, she found someone on the bed. Shen Wanwan. Ji Jingxian frowned and reached out to turn on the light. The light instantly illuminated the pitch-black bedroom, while also allowing Ji Jingxian to see the people on the big bed clearly. Who let you into my room? Ji Jingxian's face was gloomy as she questioned. Shen Wanwan was awakened by the sound of words. She opened her eyes in a daze and saw Ji Jingxian's gloomy and handsome face. Shen Wanwan. Who has offended this master again? Looking at him with a black face, it feels like someone owes him 8 million. Get out of my room. Ji Jingxian wished he could strangle Shen Wanwan. How did this woman dare to enter his room? The new book is being released, and there are activities in the comments section. Come and join us, beautiful fairy. There are small gifts. Can the fairy who likes this book stay? Take a card, leave a comment, and give a 5-star review before leaving. I would like the recommended tickets for the fairies. Please all the fairies, the rabbit will be very grateful. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Don't harbor the idea of provoking the boss. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Chapter 2. Don't harbor the idea of provoking the boss. Is this your room? Shen Wanwan's eyes widened in surprise, but Ji Jingxian didn't answer her question and said coldly. Get out of here. Ji Jingxian's expression was extremely cold, and she was scared by Shen Wanwan. She was a bit timid, but thinking that her momentum could not be lost, she straightened her back. Get lost, who cares about your bed? As Shen Wanwan spoke, she walked out. With a focus on imposing herself, she didn't pay any attention to the blanket under her feet and stepped straight on it. As a result, she threw herself at Ji Jingxian. Ji Jingxian didn't have time to dodge and was knocked to the ground. Their lips touched each other, and the sudden contact shocked Ji Jingxian beyond measure. There's only one thought left in my heart. It's over. He's not clean anymore. Just as Ji Jingxian was about to push away the person, Shen Wanwan was the first to react. She turned her big eyes and wore a mischievous smile on her face. Handsome guy, a moment in the spring is worth $1,000, why don't you just follow me? Shen Wanwan gently pinched Ji Jingxian's chin as she spoke, looking more and more rogue. Get lost. Ji Jingxian was furious. He pushed Shen Wanwan aside, picked up the person, and walked out. Oh, we are both husband and wife now. Don't be shy, I will take responsibility for you. Shen Wanwan, who was not afraid of death, continued to provoke Ji Jingxian, whose face instantly turned pitch black because of her words. You have the ability to say it again. Ji Jingxian gritted her teeth, unaware that danger was approaching. Shen Wanwan repeated what she had just said, and just as she thought she might be thrown out, Ji Jingxian sneered. Remember what you said. As the words fell, Ji Jingxian turned around and threw the person on her hand onto the bed. The next second, the room became pitch black. The next day Shen Wanwan spent the whole night explaining what it means to not die. Looking at the empty bed next to her, she was so angry that she almost vomited blood. Ji Jingxian, you bastard. Shen Wanwan shouted angrily into the air, but the sound made her blush. How could this extremely hoarse voice be hers? Shen Wanwan scolded Ji Jingxian 108,000 times in her heart before getting out of bed. After a simple wash, Shen Wanwan walked out. Last night, while feeling bored, she applied for a resume to the largest entertainment agency in China and successfully qualified for an interview. She plans to find a job first, and there is still 1 year left on the agreement with Ji Jingxian. A huge amount of wealth can only be deposited into her account after a year, during which she has no income, and she doesn't want to be a rabbit silk flower that only depends on men. With her previous life experience, Shen Wanwan decided to venture into the entertainment industry and went to YXL Group, the largest entertainment company in the city, for an interview with her resume. Stepping into the lobby of YXL Group, Shen Wanwan was stopped by someone. She presented the interview notice before being released. Take the elevator to the 12th floor, and someone will be waiting for you there. The front desk pointed to the elevator, and Shen Wanwan walked into it. The elevator went up and soon arrived at the designated floor. As soon as the elevator door opened, the person waiting outside stepped forward and said, "Excuse me, is this Miss Shen Wanwan?" "I am." Shen Wanwan nodded, and as the other person looked at him, she also looked at him without leaving a trace. "My name is Lin Zhe, and I am one of your interviewers this time. Please follow me." Lin Zhe walked forward with Shen Wanwan while speaking, just passed through the corridor and entered the interview room. Several interviewers had already been sitting in the interview room, and when Shen Wanwan walked in, they didn't hesitate either. "Shen Wanwan, right. Your resume says you are proficient in vocal music, dance, and acting. Would you mind giving a performance?" "I don't mind." Shen Wanwan smiled. She had already anticipated such a scene when she received the interview notice, and with the experience of her previous life, she was not afraid at all. Shen Wanwan's first choice was vocal music, where there was no accompaniment or recording studio. Shen Wanwan chose to sing solo. The song she chose was a high-pitched and melodious song with a lot of transitions, which was hailed as one of the most difficult cover songs in history. Even its original singer, Teacher Li Lin, was not sure if she would sing it a second time. The interviewer was surprised that Shen Wanwan would choose this song. "I didn't expect Shen Wanwan to be so bold." They could have foreseen that Shen Wanwan would crash. Just as the interviewer was preparing to watch a good show, Shen Wanwan began, and the prelude to the song was a gentle high pitch. Shen Wanwan perfectly reproduced this complete soprano, her voice clear and clean. When she sang the soprano, it flowed like a ding-dong spring water through her heart, causing the interviewers present to stare. After the high notes passed, a low hum followed. Shen Wanwan's tone was very unique, she could switch between high and low notes, and her breath was not chaotic at all. A song had 4 or 5 consecutive climax parts, and Shen Wanwan sang it without panting, instantly receiving enthusiastic applause from everyone present. Even Lin Zhe couldn't help but cast a surprised look at her. You know, Lin Zhe is a well-known gold medal agent in the industry. As is well known, the artists he carries are all personally selected by him, and after various reviews and screenings, they are selected. So the other person's vision is also very high, and there are even rumors that if someone can be praised by Lin Zhe, their talent can be considered excellent. Shen Wanwan, who was currently immersed in her performance, didn't know that after a song ended, she took a deep breath and looked at the judges in front of her. "My performance is over. Let's do your best dance." Her voice echoed with the interviewer's voice, and upon hearing the other person's question, Shen Wanwan nodded. She started her own performance, and the dance required accompaniment. Shen Wanwan took out her phone, found a hot dance song, and played it. In an instant, deafening heavy metal music rang out in the quiet office, shattering the eardrums with a fast-paced rhythm. As soon as the music started playing, Shen Wanwan performed several high-difficulty movements in a row. As the song reached its climax, she continued to jump and flip, making it dazzling. The music ended, and Shen Wanwan used a difficult move to stay in place. After the dance, her breath remained calm. "Very good. Lin Zhe applauded first, his eyes filled with satisfaction as he looked at Shen Wanwan. This person, he must sign it. Coincidentally, the artist he is leading has already stabilized in development, and now he is also leading a new artist. Seeing Lin Zhe's satisfied appearance, several interviewers exchanged glances and were extremely satisfied in their hearts. Later on, Shen Wanwan showcased her acting skills and also received a lot of praise. The interviewers stood up together without hesitation. Miss Shen, welcome to join YXL Group. Thank you, and I would appreciate your guidance, senior colleagues. Shen Wanwan smiled and shook hands with the other party before being taken to the office by Lin Zhe to discuss contract matters. After confirming that there were no issues with the contract, Shen Wanwan signed his own name and the two stood up to shake hands. Super sweet text, absolutely not abusive. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Accidentally obtaining the golden finger mind reading technique. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Accidentally obtaining the golden finger mind reading technique. Brother Lin, please give me more guidance in the future. You're welcome, let's add our contact information later. I have a resource at hand and would like you to give it a try. If you succeed, it will be very beneficial for your debut. Okay, thank you, Brother Lin. I will work hard. Shen Wanwan nodded and took out her phone. After exchanging contact information, Shen Wanwan said goodbye and left. After leaving the gate of YXL Group, Shen Wanwan took a taxi back home. When she arrived home, Ji Jingxian was already waiting at home. Upon seeing her return, Ji Jingxian remained calm on the surface, but in reality, she was carefully observing Shen Wanwan. He ended his work early today and wanted to come back to eat with Shen Wanwan, but he didn't expect to find Shen Wanwan out when he got home. Immediately, my good mood disappeared, and I don't know where this woman went early in the morning. Did he not work hard enough last night? Thinking of this, Ji Jingxian's face turned black instantly. He gritted his teeth to himself and glared angrily at the heartless Shen Wanwan. The latter did not notice anything unusual about Ji Jingxian. After changing his shoes, he walked towards him. Mr. Ji, have you eaten yet? At the moment when their eyes met, Shen Wanwan suddenly heard a sound of gritting her teeth. This woman dares to ask me if I have eaten yet. I was so angry that I even put down my work and came back to eat with her. The sudden low voice made Shen Wanwan's eyes widen. She instinctively surrounded herself, only to find that there was no one else in the living room except for the two of them. If this voice is not what she said, then it can only be. Shen Wanwan slowly shifted her gaze to Ji Jingxian. The next second, a familiar sound enters the ear. Why does this woman keep looking at me? She must like me, right? That's right. Otherwise how could Shen Wanwan have calculated everything to only marry me? Listening to the magical voice, Shen Wanwan watched helplessly as Ji Jingxian, who had no expression on her face, changed her sitting position. Do you want to have dinner with me, Mr. Ji? Shen Wanwan tentatively issued an invitation. No, I'm already full. You can eat it yourself. Ji Jingxian stood up expressionless, holding the car key and wanting to leave. This woman actually invited me to dinner together. If she begged me, I wouldn't be unable to accompany her to a meal. Why is this woman standing there foolishly? Why haven't she come to beg me? She can act coquettishly. Ji Jingxian, who appeared calm on the surface but had a lot of inner drama, was walking slower and slower. The appearance of procrastination made Shen Wanwan couldn't help but curl her lips. Mr. Ji, I haven't eaten yet. How about you accompany me to have some food and then leave? Shen Wanwan reached out and took Ji Jingxian's arm as she spoke, looking up at him with a smile on her face. Her beautiful eyes were filled with Ji Jingxian's figure. She is finally willing to keep me. Seeing her sincere appearance, I reluctantly agree. But what attitude should I adopt to agree so that I don't seem so eager? Ji Jingxian was caught up in a dilemma, but on the surface, she still had that cold expression. No one could have imagined that President Ji would stop talking in his heart. Oh, that's settled. Shen Wanwan immediately made the decision and dragged the person into the restaurant, where the table was already filled with various dishes. Ji Jingxian sat across from Shen Wanwan with a forced expression, while Shen Wanwan warmly served him dishes. Come on, these sweet and sour pork ribs are very delicious. Try them quickly. And sweet and sour pork tenderloin, cola chicken wings. Shen Wanwan picked up a chopstick for each dish for Ji Jingxian. Ji Jingxian seemed very reluctant on the surface, but her heart was filled with joy. How did she know that I love sweet and sour pork ribs? Sure enough, she must have been following me all along, otherwise how would she know I like sweet and sour pork ribs? Ji Jingxian felt happy in her heart, but the expression on her face remained cold, showing a complete lack of agreement. After listening to the other party's heart, Shen Wanwan wanted to roast, but thinking that the other party was the father of the gold owner who paid her salary, she could only swallow roast. The table became quiet for a while, and both of them were eating silently, without anyone speaking first. Where did you go today? After a while, Ji Jingxian asked about Shen Wanwan's itinerary expressionlessly. Before Shen Wanwan could answer, she heard Ji Jingxian's fragmented thoughts. Shen Wanwan wouldn't think I was caring about her, would she? I didn't care about her, I just asked out of curiosity. Shen Wanwan. Shen Wanwan tried hard to take a deep breath before jumping up from the chair and violently hitting the inconsistent, domineering CEO. The description of Ji Jingxian in the book is expressionless, indifferent, unfriendly, and cruel. Shen Wanwan really believed in his evil. Who could have thought of the so-called domineering CEO who had no expression on his face, was cold and indifferent, and had cruel means? In fact, his heart was full of chatter. Shen Wanwan has no power to roast. He just hopes to get a small amount of money and find a beautiful man. I went for an interview with an entertainment company. Shen Wanwan put down her chopsticks and looked up at Ji Jingxian sitting across from her, adding, I have successfully interviewed and even signed the contract. Oh. Ji Jingxian responded coldly, his expression still indifferent, and no one could tell from his surface that he had a little chatterbox in his heart. Why did Shen Wanwan suddenly run to interview for an entertainment company? Does Shen Wanwan want to enter the entertainment industry? Why doesn't she come to me? If she comes to me, I can't help her either. Is it that Shen Wanwan hasn't realized how rich I am yet? Ji Jingxian murmured in her heart, her cute little voice almost making Shen Wanwan laugh out loud. But for the sake of the CEO's face, she still tried to hold back, but the days ahead are probably more interesting than she imagined. After dinner, Ji Jingxian rushed back to the company without stopping, while Shen Wanwan looked at the information transmitted by her agent. Lin Zai's resource is a small supporting role of a TV series. Although it is only a small supporting role, if it can be performed well, it will definitely attract countless fans. This TV play is adapted from an online novel. The original author personally practices it. The domestic first-line director Chen Kong leads the show. The movie king and actress play the leading role, the first-line star plays the supporting role, and the Queen of Heaven plays the theme song. Although it is a small supporting role, even if it is a corpse, it is estimated that someone will break the head. However, director Chen's crew is not easy to enter. He is very strict, and his character is even more critical. Even a small supporting role, as long as he is not satisfied, it will be useless even if Tianwanlatzi comes. So, bringing funds into the group is even more absurd. Lin Zai sent detailed information and even a script. Idle and bored, Shen Wanwan began flipping through the script, which was an ancient romance novel. The main story is about the love and hate between the daughter of the general and the crown prince. The crown prince has a little tail behind him, and wherever there is a crown prince, there is her. The two of them had a great childhood sweetheart, and for this reason, the emperor even ordered an engagement. However, time flies and things are unpredictable. Don't forget to clock in when you see the babies here. Just take a card and leave a comment, there will be activities in the future. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Is this a new type of poisoning method? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Is this a new type of poisoning method? At the 18th hour of the reign of the Crown Prince, the Emperor passed away. The Crown Prince was escorted to the throne by the general to the death, and the female lead, who was supposed to become the Crown Princess, became a noble consort. In an instant, she became the laughing stock of the entire capital. Before she could question her, the newly crowned emperor took action against the general's mansion. In the end, the general's mansion was falsely accused of being executed, and she was sent to a cold palace. At the same time, the emperor married the empress, causing nationwide celebration. Later, the cold palace caught fire and burned to ashes, leaving only ruins on the ground when the emperor arrived. This is a typical ancient B script. Seeing Shen Wanwan, he couldn't help roast. But unexpectedly, there was a reversal afterwards. The daughter of a general who was supposed to die in the cold palace appeared on the battlefield and became an enemy female general, leading the enemy army to avenge their family. She walked through thorns and thorns all the way, breaking into the palace. Looking at the man with a high dragon chair, she didn't blink and took the dog's head from his neck. She set fire to the palace with a backhand, and she was also buried here, ending the story. And the role she is auditioning for is the close mate of the general's daughter, with not too many scenes and not too few, making her a likable character. Shen Wanwan, who had finished reading the novel in one breath, took a deep breath and called Lin Zhe. The phone was quickly connected, and Lin Zhe's voice came from the other end of the phone. Have you finished reading the script? How do you feel? Are you sure you can win this character? After reading it, the script is good, and as for the character, I'm sure I can win it. Before she wore it, she was a Grand Slam queen in the entertainment industry, and this kind of plot was a small case for her. As long as you are confident, the audition will start the day after tomorrow. In the next 2 days, you can first think about the script and find your feelings. I will pick you up early the day after tomorrow and send me the address. Okay. After a brief conversation, the two hung up the phone. Shen Wanwan put down her phone and stretched lazily. She glanced at the time and later realized that she had been reading the script for 5 hours. It was now autumn and the sky was getting dark quickly. She stood up and walked towards the kitchen, preparing to prepare dinner before Ji Jinxian returned. Before entering the kitchen, Shen Wanwan was full of confidence, holding her phone to search for information. Half an hour later, there were crackling sounds coming from inside the kitchen. Oh, why is this different from what's online? At this moment, Shen Wanwan was wearing an apron, holding a spatula in her left hand and a lid in her right hand, staring intently at the boiling oil in the pot. When the oil was almost done, she grabbed the untreated fish and threw it into the pot. In an instant, a crackling sound exploded in the kitchen. The oil in the pot splattered all over Shen Wanwan's exposed skin outside her clothes, causing her to scream in pain. Shen Wanwan didn't care about the fish in the pot and rushed to the faucet to wash her arms. During this time, the oil pot boiled violently, and a lot of oil fell to the floor. Ji Jinxian pushed the door in at this moment and stood at the entrance, changing his shoes. Suddenly, he smelled a burnt smell. In an instant, his eyebrows furrowed and he hurried straight to the kitchen, standing at the entrance of the kitchen. Looking at the messy kitchen, Ji Jinxian felt a bit overwhelmed. Does Shen Wanwan want to dismantle the kitchen for me, or is it that she wants to cook and poison me to seize my property? Is this a new type of poisoning method? The familiar voice made Shen Wanwan turn her head in an instant, and the result happened to match the slightly furrowed brow of last season's Jin Xian. Well, listen to my sophistry. Before Shen Wanwan could argue, the oil in the pot was boiling even more fiercely. Ji Jinxian ignored the stains on the floor and quickly turned off the fire. At this moment, the kitchen was in a mess, with the floor and tiles all splattered with oil stains, no longer the same as before. Do you have any objections to the kitchen? Ji Jingxian leaned against the kitchen door and looked up and down at Shen Wanwan. Otherwise, why would you blow up the kitchen for me? Shen Wanwan. Do I still have time to argue now? Looking at the messy kitchen, Ji Jingxian took out his phone and called for the janitor. During the janitor's visit, he ordered takeout. I'm sorry, I was planning to cook, but I didn't expect to blow up the kitchen. Shen Wanwan felt guilty and lowered her head. Although she was doing it with the video, she didn't know which step was wrong and actually blew up the kitchen. She felt both aggrieved and guilty, and as she looked down at Shen Wanwan apologizing, Ji Jingxian let out a faint sigh. It's okay, the kitchen decoration needs to be changed. You can go back to your room and change clothes first. Okay. Shen Wanwan nodded and turned back to her room. At that moment, the delivery and cleaning staff came to her door together. Ji Jingxian opened the door and took the delivery, leading the cleaning staff into the kitchen. Looking at the messy kitchen, the aunt's mouth twitched, but she didn't say anything and quickly entered a working state. When Shen Wanwan finished changing clothes and came out, Ji Jingxian had already placed the takeout on the table. She walked over to Ji Jingxian and sat down, eating quietly. This girl shouldn't have been scared by me, otherwise how could she be so quiet? It's not impossible. Was my tone too harsh just now in the quiet living room? Ji Jingxian's fragmented thoughts echoed. In order to prevent the other party from continuing to daydream, Shen Wanwan could only use chopsticks to pick vegetables for Ji Jingxian. Husband, you eat vegetables, cough cough. Ji Jingxian, who was eating seriously, choked on Kai and began to cough violently. What is Shen Wanwan smoking today? At noon, Mr. Ji turned into her husband in the afternoon. Why is this woman so fickle? Shen Wanwan, labeled as fickle, said, She just wants to cry out for justice, isn't she just trying to bring the two of them closer together? Ji Jingxian doesn't need to be so surprised, does she? Come on, husband, drink some water quickly. Shen Wanwan rose in his heart, but on his face, he still looked like a good wife, and delivered the water carefully. Looking at the water appearing in front of her, Ji Jingxian hesitated a bit. There shouldn't be any poison in this water, right? Is this another new form of murder at this moment? Shen Wanwan looked like Pan Jinlian feeding medicine to Wu Daolong in Ji Jingxian's eyes. If Shen Wanwan jumps up and says, come on, it's time for Dalang to take medicine, Ji Jingxian wouldn't be surprised. Shen Wanwan, who was misunderstood twice in a row, said, Dog man. If it weren't for the fact that the other party was the wealthy father, Shen Wanwan would have splashed water on their face long ago. What's wrong, husband? Why don't you drink water? Do you suspect that I poisoned the water? Shen Wanwan looked at Ji Jingxian with a smile on her face, but the latter still had that cold expression. It's okay. Then if it's okay, hurry up and drink the water. Holding someone's hand feels tiring. Shen Wanwan gritted her teeth to herself, who said this damn mind-reading function is useful. Ji Jingxian doesn't want to know the heart of this dog man at all, okay? The more you listen, the more angry you become. Let's put it there. Ji Jingxian casually ordered the nearby coffee table, picked up chopsticks, and continued eating without looking at the water on the coffee table throughout the journey. Looking at the dog man's appearance, Shen Wanwan wished she could bite him to death, but fortunately, a meal didn't last long. Guarantee super sweetness, everyone. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Sticky and Petish spirit is the enemy of Boss Ba. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Sticky and Petish spirit is the enemy of Boss Ba. The two had just had enough to eat, and the aunt also tidied up and left. The kitchen, which had been cleaned up by the cleaning lady, was as clean as new. Don't go into the kitchen if you have nothing to do in the future. Looking at Shen Wanwan standing at the kitchen door, Ji Jingxian coldly reminded her. To avoid blowing up the kitchen again, Shen Wanwan. Shen Wanwan choked to the point of being speechless, and could only grit her teeth and nod her head. Okay, then I'll have to trouble my husband for the next 3 meals a day. Shen Wanwan gritted her teeth and gritted her teeth, but unfortunately the person involved did not hear it. Ji Jingxian nodded faintly, turned upstairs, entered the study and started working, while Shen Wanwan, who had nothing to do, took out her laptop and began to enjoy online activities. Time passed in a blink of an eye, and by the time Shen Wanwan withdrew from the online world, the pointer had already reached 10 o'clock. Seeing that it was not early, Shen Wanwan got up and left the bedroom to knock on the door of the study. Buckle buckle, come in. Shen Wanwan pushed the door and entered. Ji Jinxian's study was very large, with several rows of bookshelves displayed on the right side, on which books from various fields were placed. What's up? Sitting behind the desk, Ji Jingxian lifted her head from her notebook and her gaze fell lightly on Shen Wanwan. Husband, it's too late to go to bed. Shen Wanwan walked over with a smile on her face, stood beside Ji Jingxian, and reached out to put her hand on his shoulder. We just agreed to get married, there's no need to call it so intimate. Ji Jingxian moved her shoulder uneasily, wanting to shake Shen Wanwan's hand. If she calls me husband, I can't accept it either. Shen Wanwan. This is stuffy. Husband, getting married through an agreement is also getting married. Besides, if we don't practice privately, what should we do if we help out? Shen Wanwan smiled on the surface, but in her heart, she had 10,000 lines of advice. She didn't know whether to say it or not. Good guy. Ji Jinxian's words successfully ignited her fighting spirit. She didn't believe in her charm and couldn't take down Ji Jingxian, this dog man. Whatever you want. Ji Jingxian stood up, avoided his desk, and fled in despair. Looking at Ji Jinxian's back, Shen Wanwan politely laughed out loud. It's so cute. Is this the way a domineering CEO opens up? After laughing enough, Shen Wanwan left the study and returned to the bedroom. When she returned to the bedroom, there was a splashing sound of water flowing in the bathroom. Looking at the faint figures inside the frosted glass, Shen Wanwan silently swallowed her saliva. Actually, it's good to have a good husband for nothing. Ji Jingxian washed quickly, and before Shen Wanwan could finish admiring her, the bathroom door opened. Watching Ji Jingxian walk out of the bathroom dressed neatly, Shen Wanwan felt a bit regretful. Why is this woman looking at me again? Husband, come over quickly, they'll blow your hair. Shen Wanwan ignored a president's roast, patted the bed beside him enthusiastically and sent out an invitation. I'm not going over, this must be a new type of prank. Although he thought so, Ji Jingxian, who felt his mouth was upright, walked over with long legs and sat down by the bed. As soon as he sat down, Shen Wanwan couldn't wait to take out a hair dryer to blow Ji Jingxian's hair. The man's hair dries very quickly, and during this time, both of them are very quiet. It wasn't until Shen Wanwan finished blowing her hair, Shen Wanwan took back the hair dryer, and Ji Jingxian stood up, wanting to go out. You go to bed first, I have something else to do. Before Ji Jingxian could finish speaking, she was grabbed by Shen Wanwan's wrist. Shen Wanwan sat on the bed and reached out to pull him. Husband, is there something you can't be busy with tomorrow? It's already late now, so you should go to bed. Shen Wanwan shook Ji Jingxian's arm as she spoke, acting coquettishly towards him. Ji Jingxian, who was being held down, wanted to break free, but Shen Wanwan, this clingy fairy, was too skilled in acting coquettishly. You let go first. I have something else to do, so go to bed first. Ji Jingxian wanted to leave, but Shen Wanwan couldn't have let him go so easily. Husband, why don't you sleep with them? I'm a bit scared, and I can't sleep without you. Shen Wanwan told a lie without blushing or jumping. Seeing Shen Wanwan's coquettish appearance, Ji Jingxian wanted to be ruthless. He had just made a fierce expression on his face, but the words he was thinking betrayed him. Shen Wanwan is just a little spoiled brat, right? Her sticky and cute way of calling her husband is so cute. "Oh no, I can't think about it anymore. I must leave quickly, so as not to make this coquettish spirit think that coquettishness is really useful." Just as Ji Jingxian made up her mind and wanted to leave, Shen Wanwan slightly curled her lips and jumped up from the bed, hugging Ji Jingxian. "Husband, he's so tired." Shen Wanwan directly placed her legs on Ji Jingxian's waist and her head on Ji Jingxian's shoulders. "Husband, why don't you sleep with him? He's really tired." Finally, the sticky coquettish spirit made it impossible for Ji Jingxian to sleep together. As soon as the two of them lay down, Shen Wanwan eagerly crawled into Ji Jingxian's arms and held them tightly in the posture of a koala. "Good night, husband." Shen Wanwan looked up and said good night to Ji Jingxian with a curved smile. However, when the other party was caught off guard, she gave him a slap in the face. Ji Jingxian, who was kissed, stiffened completely. In order to conceal her unnatural expression, Ji Jingxian quickly turned off the light. The room instantly fell into darkness, and Ji Jingxian's red earbuds were also covered by the darkness, leaving only her innermost thoughts. "I was not dreaming just now, was I? Shen Wanwan actually kissed me just now." Do you know what it means to be a man and woman without marriage? Shen Wanwan's lips are surprisingly soft. Listening to Ji Jingxian's fragmented thoughts, Shen Wanwan hugged him even more tightly, closed her eyes, and immersed herself in a dream. The next day Ji Jingxian woke up very early, and when he woke up, Shen Wanwan was still holding him and sleeping soundly, with a rosy face that was lovable. Watching Shen Wanwan sleeping, Ji Jingxian rarely had a cold face and was careful not to wake her up. As soon as she moved, Shen Wanwan opened her eyes in a daze, not even understanding the situation. "Husband, good morning." Shen Wanwan vaguely gave Ji Jingxian a slap, and Ji Jingxian's handsome face turned red after being kissed again. "Early. Early, what early?" Ji Jingxian pretended to be angry and embarrassed, but he forgot that his mouth and body were upright, and his hand that was wrapped around someone's waist never let go. So tired, Shen Wanwan, the coquettish spirit, tightly hugged Ji Jingxian, closed her eyes, and fell asleep again in a daze. Looking at the person sleeping in her arms, Ji Jingxian sighed helplessly, but her words were filled with sweetness. "I found myself an ancestor in order not to wake up Shen Wanwan." President Ji, who usually loves to work, rarely skipped work today. Staying in the office waiting left and right, I was surprised not to receive the special assistance from the CEO. I took out my phone and called the CEO to inquire about the situation. "Don't take care of the beloved baby. It's easy for the author to be taken care of to death. I suggest that all the fairies leave a comment, vote and add a bookmark. If you don't vote, add favorites, or leave comments. I will kneel down and beg you all. Tat. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. The Heart Becomes So Fast, What a Fickle Man. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. The Heart Becomes So Fast, What a Fickle Man. When Ji Jingxian received a phone call from his assistant, he was sleeping soundly with his little wife, who was holding milk Fragrance, and was suddenly woken up by the phone. President Ji's brows and eyes were filled with annoyance and impatience, as he grabbed his phone next to him and quickly answered the call. "You'd better have something to do." Ji Jingxian lowered his voice to warn, and upon hearing the threat from the CEO, Teju trembled all over and hurriedly reported the situation. "President, there is a shareholders' meeting at 9 o'clock this morning, and you need to attend. May I drive over to pick you up?" The tone of the special note is cautious, as it is approaching the end of the month and it is time to pay the salary. We must not offend the CEO. The meeting will be postponed for half an hour. After giving orders in a cold voice, Ji Jingxian hung up the phone, and just as she lowered her head, she saw the peaceful sleeping little coquettish spirit. Looking at the sweet sleeping little coquettish spirit, Ji Jingxian had an impulse to lie down and sleep for a while. As the shareholder meeting was approaching, he could only carefully release his little coquettish spirit and get up to wash up. After a simple wash, Ji Jingxian saw that it was still early and decided to walk into the kitchen. She made breakfast and lunch for the spoiled girl and put them all in the refrigerator, leaving thoughtful notes. After everything was ready, Ji Jingxian picked up the car key and went to work at lightning speed all the way to the company. As soon as Ji Jingxian arrived at the office, Special Assistant walked in with the materials in hand. The two of them walked side by side to the meeting room, and Special Assistant briefly introduced today's meeting minutes. The warm sun hung high in the air, gently sprinkling through the unclosed curtains into the quiet room, adding a touch of warmth. The person on the big bed rolled over in a daze, caught off guard and rolled off the bed, falling off their butt. Shen Wanwan. Shen Wanwan was awakened by the fall. She opened her eyes and looked at the empty room, her mouth deflated. Sitting on the ground, holding the phone from the front desk, I sent a message to Ji Jingxian, brushing her presence. After the message was sent, Shen Wanwan casually placed her phone aside, got up from the ground, and walked into the bathroom to wash up. On the other side of the dignified conference room, the project manager was reporting the situation with trembling fear. As a big boss, Ji Jingxian sat at the beginning and lowered her eyes to listen. At this moment, the sound of ding-dong mobile phone messages rang in the conference room, and everyone attending the meeting held their breath, secretly guessing which unlucky person had not muted their phones during the meeting. The CEO has explicitly stipulated that mobile phones must be muted during meetings, and now there is a good show to watch. Everyone was looking around, waiting for the unlucky guy to be scolded. Unexpectedly, the big boss sitting at the top picked up his phone on the desk. The crowd who saw this scene stared wide-eyed, their eyes filled with shock, while unlucky ghost Jin Xian picked up his phone to reply to the message in front of everyone. Shen Wanwan said, "Husband, I accidentally fell off the bed, it hurts so much." Shen Wanwan said, "I need my husband to boast to get better." Shen Wanwan. Rabbit roll cute, JPG. Looking at these three words full of coquetry, Ji Jingxian is seemingly motionless, but in his heart he is roast about coquetry. Shen Wanwan, is this woman spoiled and fickle? Otherwise, why are you so clingy and coquettish? Although she was roast in her heart, Ji Jingxian still sent words of concern to her. And quickly changed the note of Shen Wanwan to little spoiled child, and under the curious gaze of the special assistant, quickly put away the phone. What? I have a report on my face. Ji Jingxian's cold eyes swept away, and everyone who was originally staring at him immediately lowered their heads like quails. The project manager standing in front wiped his sweat and continued to report. The people in the conference room were too imposing to leave, fearing that they would offend the CEO, especially the special assistants who was about to receive their salary at the end of the month. But Ji Jingxian was not listening attentively at all, and his thoughts had long drifted away. Did the little coquettish spirit fall severely or not? No, why should I care if she fell seriously or not? How about leaving work early today and going back to take a look? Forget it, for the sake of her calling her husband so sweet, I'll reluctantly go back and take a look. It wouldn't be good if she fell silly. Yes, I'm afraid she might fall out of her wits before going back to see it. I didn't want to be a little coquettish and call her husband. The heart of a certain boss is in chaos due to a few messages, and the culprit who sent the message is enjoying the boss's love breakfast. At this moment the phone next to her rang, and while Shen Wanwan was cooking, she casually glanced at the news from Mr. Ba. She quickly put down the utensils in her hand. Unlocking her phone, when she saw the lonely message on the screen, Shen Wanwan was so angry that she wanted to hit someone. What should I do if a dog man is too dog-like? Shen Wanwan was so angry that she changed the note for Ji Jingxian from iceberg old man to talking dog man, and then threw her phone on the table. Continuing to work on the meal fiercely, as if chewing it like Ji Jingxian, this dog man. The screen of the phone that was casually thrown on the table was still on, and the dialogue box with the note, talking dog man, was on. The latest news is. The nagging man said, if you fall, apply your own medicine. The words were cold and heartless, no wonder Shen Wanwan was so angry that she changed all the notes and didn't want to talk to the other party. A dog man who didn't expect to anger his wife was absent-mindedly listening to his subordinate's report. During the reporting period, he occasionally glanced at his phone as if waiting for someone's message, but unfortunately, the phone screen remained black. After the subordinate finished reporting and left, Ji Jingxian couldn't wait to press her phone to see if there was a problem with her signal. But he found that his phone was fine, and he also didn't receive any news from a little coquettish. Looking at the chat box that ended with her own conversation, Ji Jingxian expressionlessly locked her phone screen and forced herself to get into work. Shen Wanwan, who was staying at home, happily finished breakfast and took a walk before picking up her phone to reply to Ji Jingxian, the dog man. After replying to the message, Shen Wanwan collapsed on the sofa holding her phone and began to lie down. Time passed by in a flash, and after finishing the morning work, Ji Jingxian finally put down her pen and picked up her phone. I thought it was impossible to get a reply from the coquettish spirit, but I didn't expect that when the screen lit up, the coquettish spirit's avatar lay prominently on the screen. Ji Jingxian forced herself not to be so excited, not to let Shen Wanwan think that he was deliberately waiting for her news. He can't be too proactive, otherwise Shen Wanwan, this woman, will definitely be very proud. Thinking of this, Ji Jingxian deliberately lit up for a few minutes before pretending to casually pick up her phone to check the information. Little coquettish spirit. Poor little rabbit gif, watching the little rabbit with wide open eyes and Wei Chu Baba's cute emoji on the screen, Ji Jingxian couldn't help but curl up the corners of her mouth. When she reacted, she pursed it straight again. He clicked on the input box, typed and deleted everything again. In the end, Ji Jingxian pressed the light on his phone, grabbed the car key, left the office, and walked towards the elevator. My favorite fairy can support me. We have successfully signed the contract and guarantee it. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. The pretty fairy wants to eat the apple one bited, is that right? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. The pretty fairy wants to eat the apple one bited, is that indirectly, husband, you're back. When Ji Jingxian arrived home, she heard the sticky voice of a coquettish spirit. The words were soft and filled with a hint of anticipation and strong longing. Upon hearing this sound, Ji Jingxian was taken aback and her gaze met Shen Wanwan, who was lying on the sofa holding her phone and looking up. As Ji Jingxian looked at the other party's sparkling eyes, his heart couldn't help but jump. He quickly left his sight. Why is Shen Wanwan always so spoiled? This little girl, the coquettish fairy's bright eyes look really beautiful. No, what am I thinking? How could I have such thoughts? Listening to Ji Jingxian's lovely words, Shen Wanwan's eyes were filled with a smile, and she couldn't help but start teasing the other person. Husband, what's wrong with you? I've been waiting for you all day, but when I come back, I won't give him a loving hug. Shen Wanwan deliberately pouted and made a very dissatisfied appearance. When Ji Jingxian didn't react, she jumped up from the sofa and threw herself directly at the person. Unprepared, Ji Jingxian was thrown into her arms. When her fragrant and soft little wife entered her arms, Ji Jingxian instinctively wanted to throw her out. But Shen Wanwan didn't give him a chance, so she threw the person directly onto the other person in a koala posture. Husband, it's been a whole morning now, don't you even think of me? They all miss you. Shen Wanwan acted coquettishly in a soft voice, and no one could tell from her serious demeanor that she had a split heart. Ji Jingxian, who was so smart, was also deceived by Shen Wanwan, a little liar. I don't want to. Ji Jingxian decisively expressed his attitude, but his heart betrayed him directly. I wouldn't miss you, how could I possibly miss you, coquettish? I was just curious to check my phone before replying to the message. Yes, that's right. Listening to Ji Jingxian's awkward words, Shen Wanwan almost burst into laughter. She tightly hugged her and then leaned in her ear. Husband, can you help them get the package from the security guard? The scent of milk fragrance came from his side, making Ji Jingxian's ears instantly turn red. He turned his head slightly uncomfortable. Get down. I don't want it. If you go get the package for them, they will come down. You come down first. Ji Jingxian gritted his teeth on the surface, but his inner thoughts betrayed him once again. Why is coquettish essence fragrant and soft? Why is the sweet milk fragrance on the spoiled spirit? Did she drink a lot of milk behind my back? Listening to Ji Jingxian's fragmented thoughts, Shen Wanwan tried to suppress her laughter and quickly jumped off the ladder. The distance between Naixiang and Ji Jingxian made Ji Jingxian feel a bit reluctant, but he didn't think too much. He turned around and wanted to leave, but before taking a few steps, his hand was grabbed. Honey, where are you going? Aren't you going to help someone get the package? Shen Wanwan stood on the sofa, blinking her sparkling eyes at Ji Jingxian, filled with anticipation. What express delivery should I take? Ji Jingxian frowned slightly. He rarely makes online purchases, and sometimes things are automatically delivered to his home. He has never received any express delivery. I bought a package, and I also thoughtfully bought a gift for my husband. Shen Wanwan blinked his eyes. How sweet he looked, but in fact, he was crazy roast. Isn't it just about taking a delivery? Is my request too spicy? Aren't even big CEOs shopping online? It's really surprising that you don't even know how to get the package. The exquisite crystal chandelier emitted a warm yellow halo, and under the light, Shen Wanwan's skin was fair and delicate, like the white porcelain carefully crafted by top craftsmen. Just looking from a distance, one can feel the delicacy of the acquisition, and such a wonderful person is acting coquettishly in charge of the season. Who would refuse a cute and coquettish little playboy who would sweetly call out her husband? Ji Jingxian, who had a cold heart, couldn't help but be softened by this coquettishness and agreed to help pick up the package. Shen Wanwan was extremely happy to receive the answer she wanted. She lay on the sofa and watched as Ji Jingxian went out to pick up the package. Half an hour later, Ji Jingxian walked in with a dozen or so shopping bags in each hand, followed by several security guards from the community. The security guard also carried many shopping bags in their hands, and they followed into the room, with their gaze fixed on Shen Wanwan on the sofa. Everyone's eyes were indescribable. These nearly 50 or 60 shopping bags were all from the same city, which means this lady bought a bunch of luxury goods in a day. This is really enough to be a black sheep, but on second thought, the security guard didn't say anything and put down his things and left. Wow, thank you, my husband, for helping me pick up the package. I love you. Shen Wanwan lay on the sofa and showed great love to President Ji, whose face was pitch black. As she was about to audition, Shen Wanwan unexpectedly realized that she didn't have many clothes to wear. The original owner's clothes were relatively conservative, most of them were long-sleeved clothes, with few skirts. Occasionally, a few pieces were knee-length skirts, and the short skirts didn't even show a trace. She had no choice but to start online shopping. While strolling around, she accidentally bought too many. Fortunately, the original owner had money, so she didn't have to spend the money from Hua Ji Jinxian. Husband, could you help him get a small knife? Shen Wanwan acted coquettishly towards Ji Jingxian and picked up half of the apple she had not eaten, handing it to Ji Jingxian. Husband, as a reward, I'll treat you to an apple. This apple is super sweet. Looking at the half apple in Shen Wanwan's hand, Ji Jingxian expressionlessly refused. Not eating. But in my heart, is this apple really that sweet? How about bringing it over to taste? No, I absolutely can't be flattered by this woman. Shen Wanwan is the best at pleasing others, and I absolutely can't be fooled. Listening to Ji Jingxian's heartfelt words, Shen Wanwan curled her lips and let out a regretful sigh. Hey, since you don't want to eat it, then I can only enjoy this sweet apple alone. After speaking, Shen Wanwan wanted to take the apple and deliver it to her mouth, but halfway through, she was stopped by Ji Jingxian. Who said I don't eat? Ji Jingxian took a bite of the apple and chewed it casually, pretending to be disgusted on the surface. It's not sweet at all. Cursin. This apple is really a bit sweet. It seems that the little coquettish spirit is not lying. Really? How about you give me a bite, husband? I also want to eat that apple. Is it sweet or not? After Shen Wanwan finished speaking, she wanted to bite the apple, but unfortunately was held down by Ji Jingxian. There's still something in the basket, you can take it yourself if you want to eat. Ji Jingxian's apparent disdain is very obvious, but in reality, she is thinking of some strange things in her heart. The apples I've tried, even the little spoiled brat wants to eat them, is that indirect? The idea was so strange that Ji Jingxian was instantly aroused, and Shen Wanwan's performance also began. Woo-woo, husband, you actually despise others. Is this your attitude towards your wife? Woo-woo, the world is going downhill, and people's hearts are unpredictable. Before Shen Wanwan could finish speaking, her mouth was blocked by the sudden appearance of an apple. Good night, ladies and gentlemen, starting tomorrow at 6,000 plus, end of this chapter. Chapter 8. Playing coquettish and boasting on the online platform, always unable to resist chatterbox bullying. You are listening at novel full.audio. The source has no content or has errors. Chapter 9. There is nothing that cannot be achieved through coquettishness, if any. You are listening at novel full.audio. There is nothing in Chapter 9 that cannot be achieved by being coquettish. If there is, it is that being coquettish is not enough. Don't do it. I just had enough to eat and I really want to sleep. Upon seeing the sudden appearance of Ji Jingxian, Shen Wanwan was lying on the sofa unwilling to move, eating and drinking enough. She only wanted to lie down with a salty fish. Get up, don't let me say it 3 times. Ji Jingxian's face was serious, and she completely refused to accept Shen Wanwan's spoiled behavior. With a strong attitude, she wanted Shen Wanwan to get up from the sofa. I don't want to unless. Shen Wanwan's big eyes rolled around, and as she looked at her fox-like gaze, Ji Jingxian suddenly felt something was amiss. Before he had any other thoughts, Shen Wanwan lay on the sofa and reached out to him, blinking her sparkling eyes. Unless you pick me up, my husband, I'll be lying down. As Shen Wanwan spoke, she reached out her hands to Ji Jingxian, wanting her to embrace him. She looked at a salted fish lying on the sofa unwilling to move, and Ji Jingxian took a deep breath. In the end, she bent down and lifted the person in the princess's embrace, then turned around and went up to the 2nd floor. I didn't expect Ji Jingxian to really hug her. Shen Wanwan was stunned. When she was picked up, she instinctively reached out and wrapped her hand around Ji Jingxian's neck to prevent herself from falling. Husband, where are you going to hold me? Shen Wanwan looked curiously at Ji Jingxian, not understanding where Ji Jingxian would hold her. However, before Shen Wanwan could figure it out, Ji Jingxian had already arrived at the place he wanted to go. He pushed the door open and walked in with Shen Wanwan in his arms. He placed the person in his arms on the soft cushion in the gym, stood up, and looked down at Shen Wanwan from a high position. Just finished eating, I think you should exercise well. As the words fell, Ji Jingxian lifted her steps and wanted to leave, but before she could take 2 steps, her thighs were hugged by someone. Honey, why don't you stay and exercise with me? Shen Wanwan looked up and smiled at Ji Jingxian. At the moment when their eyes met, in the quiet gym, she remembered Ji Jingxian's familiar voice once again. Why is a coquettish spirit so clingy? Forget it, I'll go exercise with her instead, so that this coquettish spirit won't lie on the mat as a salted fish when I'm not around. Yes, I was afraid that this coquettish spirit would stay on the mat as a salted fish, and I definitely didn't want to exercise with her. After making efforts to provide psychological construction and suggestions, Ji Jingxian pretended to be indifferent and agreed. Line. Husband, you're so kind. Shen Wanwan smiled brightly and praised, but at this moment, she was completely unaware of the impending danger. Ji Jingxian untied the cuffs of her shirt, wrapped them around her arm, and crouched down. He picked up Shen Wanwan, who was lying on the soft cushion as a salted fish, and headed straight for the treadmill. Although Ji Jingxian rarely exercises in the gym, most of the facilities in this gym are complete. This can be said to be a small fitness center, and when Shen Wanwan was picked up, she didn't realize that she was already running. Jog for 20 minutes after meals. Ji Jingxian stood on another treadmill while speaking, adjusting her time and speed, and started running along the conveyor belt. Don't be in a daze, run quickly. Ji Jingxian's cold voice pulled Shen Wanwan's thoughts back to reality. She turned her head to look at the figure standing on the treadmill running, and Shen Wanwan took a look. In my heart, I can't help roast that Ji Jingxian is too straight and won't love others. However, roast was roast, she adjusted the time for herself to start jogging, and the gym became very quiet for a while. Both of them ran at their own pace until they stopped at the set time before slowly slowing down their pace. After running, it was just 8 o'clock when Shen Wanwan hurriedly urged Ji Jingxian to go to the study to handle work, while she went back to her room, washed herself briefly, and lay in bed surfing the internet. After 2 days of living as an unemployed wanderer, Shen Wanwan felt very comfortable, but she had to be forced to work tomorrow. Thinking of the feeling of crazy shopping these past few days, Shen Wanwan had an impulse to not go to work. Looking back at his approaching bottom balance, Shen and Wanwan could only work hard. After wandering around the shopping platform, Shen Wanwan lost interest in her phone and happened to be thirsty. She got up and went downstairs to pour water. Entering the kitchen, pulling open the refrigerator and looking at the dazzling array of drinks, Shen Wanwan became entangled. What exactly are you drinking? Having too many drinks at home is not necessarily a good thing, at least for those with choice difficulties. Finally, Shen Wanwan closed her eyes and casually picked a seed, then turned off the refrigerator and looked at the empty kitchen, recalling the CEO who was working diligently upstairs. In the end, Shen Wanwan realized with conscience that she had cut a plate of fruit for the CEO and brought it upstairs. Cutting fruits was a relatively simple task for Shen Wanwan. She casually arranged the plate without appearing messy, holding her own drink and fruit, walked to the door of the study, and reached out to knock on the door. Come in. Shen Wanwan pushed the door open and walked quickly towards Ji Jingxian behind the desk, carrying fruit. He placed the fruit on the table and reached out to Mimi to pinch Ji Jingxian's shoulder. It is said that Shen Wanwan is so attentive that Ji Jingxian didn't say anything except for a slight discomfort. Husband, you've been working hard. Eat more fruits to relax and unwind. Shen Wanwan kindly pinched Ji Jingxian's shoulder, with a smile that was flattering and flattering. No matter what, I won't go to the Three Treasures Hall. Tell me, what's up? When Shen Wanwan came to deliver fruit to eat, Ji Jingxian knew that this little spoiled spirit had other devilish ideas. Hee, my husband's family just wants to discuss something with you, Shen Wanwan, who had been exposed, chuckled and continued to pinch Ji Jingxian's shoulder without embarrassment. Speak up directly if you have something to say. Then I'll just say it. Seeing that Ji Jingxian was so articulate, Shen Wanwan's courage increased significantly. She stopped pinching her shoulder and approached Ji Jingxian. Husband, you have to go to work tomorrow. How about taking me on the way? I'm going to Jincheng Entertainment on the same street as your company. Shen Wanwan originally wanted to take a taxi, but she thought that having a tool man's husband would not be worth it. Maybe they could add to their relationship on the way. I have to work very early tomorrow morning. Ji Jingxian's words were immediately rejected, but who is Shen Wanwan? She is a little coquettishness that even the boss can't stand. How could she not handle this nagging boss? Husband, it's okay. He can wake up early, Ji Jingxian. Ji Jingxian released the mouse and looked expressionlessly at the computer in front of him, but his inner words betrayed him. Humph, this is the petite attitude of a little coquettish person. Why don't you just hold on to your shoulders? I didn't expect that the little coquettish spirit is soft everywhere, even the little hands are the same, Upon hearing this heartfelt voice, Shen Wanwan quickly pinched Mr. Ba's shoulder and softly acted coquettishly towards him. "Husband, can you just promise them?" Line. Finally, it was Ji Jingxian who was so frustrated that she reluctantly agreed. Good night. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. The sleeping boss is too tempting, and the coquettish spirit cannot resist. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. The sleeping boss is too tempting, and the coquettish spirit cannot resist. Shen Wanwan, who received the answer she wanted, casually raised her thumb and index finger and pinched a small heart. "Thank you, husband." As the words fell, without giving Ji Jingxian a chance to react, Shen Wanwan turned around and ran away. Watching Shen Wanwan disappear outside the study door, Ji Jingxian became angry. Women are indeed a fickle species. The first second was when my husband was older and my husband was shorter, but the second was when I got it, I just casually said, "Thank you, husband." In a fit of anger, Ji Jingxian solved the file in a few seconds and got up to go back to the bedroom. The bright lights in the bedroom were replaced by dim yellow. In the center of the big bed, Shen Wanwan slept soundly wrapped in a blanket. Against the dim yellow light, Shen Wanwan looked both hazy and beautiful. Seeing this scene, Ji Jingxian instinctively slowed down his pace and slowly approached Shen Wanwan, who was sleeping soundly. He stood by the bed and looked down at the sweet sleeping coquettish spirit. He never thought he could live under the same roof or even sleep on the same bed with another person. When he heard the news of the marriage alliance, his first thought was for the two to become a superficial couple. But unexpectedly, just a few days had passed, and Shen Wanwan had so forcefully entered his life. Every move and frown of a coquettish spirit echoed in his mind from time to time, and any thoughts were about to emerge. Ji Jingxian's thoughts were interrupted, and she lowered her head to look at Shen Wanwan, who was turning over and blinking in a daze. Ji Jingxian instantly regained her previous coldness. After standing for a long time, he turned around and walked into the bathroom. After a brief wash, he walked to the bedside and lay down. Just as Ji Jingxian lay down, Shen Wanwan, who was sleeping soundly, quickly rolled towards the direction where Ji Jingxian was, as if she had found her home. The familiar milk fragrance penetrated into the tip of her nose, causing Ji Jingxian, who had originally intended to push her away, to hesitate. With this hesitation, she couldn't let go. Night, gradually getting deeper in a villa on the other side of the city, the lights were always brightly lit, and a famous woman knelt quietly in the hall of the villa. The woman's left cheek was high and swollen, indicating that she had been severely beaten, while she just knelt on the ground crying and dared not speak. And there was a man sitting on the sofa in front of her, whose face was hidden under a mask, appearing mysterious and noble. The man was holding several photos tightly in his hands, and as he looked at the people in the photos, his face became increasingly pale. "What's the use of me raising you, you idiot?" After cursing, the man seemed to feel that it was not enough and even lifted his leg to firmly press against the woman's foot. The woman who didn't have time to avoid was kicked and her body fell to the side. "Father." The woman was forced to lie on the ground, and she looked up at the man with tears in her eyes. This man was her biological father and also the demon who personally pushed her into hell. "Don't call me father, I don't have a daughter like you. Your presence makes me ashamed." Upon hearing those two words, the man's emotions became violent, but he didn't take action against the woman. Instead, he snapped his fingers. A crisp snap of fingers sounded in the living room, and upon hearing the familiar snap of fingers, the woman trembled with fear. Before she could plead for mercy, two big men walked into the door. After nodding and bowing to the man, they picked up the woman on the ground and left. Looking at the woman being dragged away, the man had no expression on his face. He got up and walked up to the second floor, pushing open the door to a certain room. The room was pitch black, and the man stood in the darkness, took a deep breath, raised his hand, and turned on the light. In an instant, the entire room was filled with light. The decoration of the room is very simple, and compared to the luxurious lobby, it is simply two different styles. And the most noteworthy thing is not the layout of the room, but the quiet middle-aged woman lying in bed. The middle-aged woman's face was pale, and her wrist bones, exposed outside her clothes, were thin and jagged, while the middle-aged woman was surrounded by medical equipment. "Mom." The man walked over to the bedside and sat down, extending his broad and thick palm to gently grasp the woman's bony hand. "Mom, after sleeping for so long, you should wake up now. Mom, I will soon be able to avenge you and my father." The man burst into laughter as he spoke, his whole appearance somewhat insane, as if he had fallen into some kind of imagination. The man's laughter was loud enough to attract everyone, but the villa was very quiet, not to mention the servants, not even a single person was there. I don't know how long he laughed, but the man suddenly restrained his smile and his eyes became fierce. "Mom, don't worry, I will avenge my father and have everyone in the G family buried with me." As the words fell, the man stood up and gently comforted the woman, then turned around and left the room. He took out his phone and called his capable subordinate. After giving some simple instructions, he hung up the phone. The night gradually deepened, with dark clouds covering the sky and revealing the darkest side of the human heart. I had no dreams all night, and the next day when I woke up, Shen Wanwan only felt refreshed and refreshed. It felt so good to sleep until dawn, and Shen Wanwan just wanted to lie in bed for a while. When she woke up, Ji Jinxian's eyes were still tightly closed and immersed in a dream. Shen Wanwan carefully raised her head to observe Ji Jinxian's sleeping face. This was the first time Shen Wanwan had seen Ji Jinxian sleeping. Ji Jinxian was asleep like a quiet big child. With his eyes tightly closed, he shed his usual coldness and alienation, and was replaced by tranquility and tranquility. After watching for an unknown amount of time, Shen Wanwan reached out her hand and gently touched Ji Jinxian's face, carefully depicting her facial features. Ji Jinxian's facial features are handsome, and her skin is delicate and smooth, completely unlike that of a man. TSK, this skin is so beautiful, it's really enviable. Relying on Ji Jinxian not waking up yet, Shen Wanwan completely released herself and rubbed her face with her fingers. Shen Wanwan, who was happily eating tofu, was completely unaware that the person who had been eaten tofu had already woken up and still acted recklessly on Ji Jinxian's face. First, her eyebrows, eyes, nose, and finally, her thin lips. Looking at these tempting lips, Shen Wanwan couldn't help but lean forward and kiss them. With just a touch, Shen Wanwan was completely unaware of the impending danger. Watching Ji Jinxian fall asleep so obediently, Shen Wanwan's heart was a bit restless. Just as she was about to take a photo of Ji Jinxian with her phone as a memento, she turned her head and met her dark and heavy black eyes. Ji Jinxian's eyes are very beautiful, and when her narrow phoenix eyes are fixed on a person, her charm is not to be underestimated. At the moment when their gaze met, Shen Wanwan was momentarily stunned. Ji Jinxian's gaze seemed to hide an unknown abyss, and as soon as she stepped into it, she would be immersed in it and unable to extricate herself. She looked straight at Ji Jinxian, as if her mind had been drawn away by him, until his voice pulled her thoughts back. "Have you seen enough? The activities in the comments section have been posted, and all the fairies can go and take a look." End of this chapter.